Hey there guys, Amrit here, and I've coached over 250 people, super deep, one-on-one, nice and intimate, spoken on stages all over the world. I've learned a thing or two about transformation in my time doing all of this work as a coach and transformational leader. One of the questions I often get is, at what point does transformation occur? And today I just wanted to share a story with you all that I share from stages all over the world. I think it's really important to recognize at what point a shift occurs. So this is something that, please, if you can, reserve your judgments. It's a little bit vulnerable for me to share. I used to be a bit of a litter bug. I used to walk along the street and have a wrapper in my hand, just some sort of rubbish, and I would literally just throw it on the earth. Some part of me, in my defense, if I had to go to defend myself in court, some part of me actually thought all that stuff sort of got filtered somewhere at some point. It was just an assumption that I had. And I was dating my wife, and by that stage, we'd been probably dating for a couple of years, and she would call me out. Yeah, she would say things like, "That is a disgusting habit. I can't believe you're littering." And I would just not even listen. I was just so arrogant, so just in my own little bubble, touch wood, that I just would scoff and just carry on. Like, really, again, guys, I'm not proud of this, but that was my behavior. The reason I share this with you is because 2 years of her telling me this, that, hey, that's disgusting, that's a bad habit, you shouldn't do that, like, come on, what are you doing? You're better than that. Are you seriously doing that? You're just littering, you're a litter bug. Calling me out on it made little to no difference. And then at one point, she changed what she said slightly. What she turned around and said to me was, "Hey, do you know that that ends up in the ocean?" The piece of rubbish that I just dropped. She highlighted to me, "Hey, do you know that that piece of rubbish ends up in the ocean?" You remember there was that video on YouTube of the straw coming out of the turtle's neck. There's a piece of pliers and the straw is just coming out of the turtle's nostril. And it literally feels like the straw is longer than the turtle. And it's just painful to watch the amount of emotions that evokes within me. And in that moment, I had this visceral, full body felt response. And just this horror that I was the guy that actually put that straw in the turtle's nose. Obviously, asterisk, I didn't put that exact straw in that exact turtle's nose, but it was basically the same thing. And it was a really powerful, drop in for me. I could visually see the turtle and my contribution to that suffering that I didn't want to be a part of. And I would love to tell you from this point that as of that point in time, never again did Amrit ever again litter. But a further horrifying truth, unfortunately, a couple of days later, I was walking down the road, and I can acknowledge, again, painfully, I'm not proud of this, walking along, dropped a piece of rubbish, just carried on my business. I probably did that another time, times two, just second time, just dropped rubbish, kept walking. It was probably the third time that I was walking along the road and I dropped the piece of rubbish, and the turtle image and the thought process that my wife had sort of gifted me, which was like, oh, turtle, oh, rubbish, ocean, I just kept walking, yeah? Probably times four, the same thing happened, yeah? I dropped the rubbish, kept walking down the road. I did have the image of the turtle in my head, but I just kept walking and ignoring it. It was time 5 that I actually dropped the rubbish, walked down the road, stopped thinking about the turtle, and looked back at the piece of rubbish and said, I should probably pick that up. Ignored the impulse and kept walking. And that happened on time 6 as well, right? So I'm walking down the road, dropped my piece of rubbish. Again, I'm not proud that I'm doing this, yeah? Dropped my piece of rubbish, walked past it, stopped, looked back at it and gone, oh, I just littered. And I'm thinking about the turtle and I'm going, man. Anyway, time 7. What happens? I'm walking along the road. I drop the rubbish. I walk down the road a little bit. I look back. I go to pick up the rubbish. And then I start looking for a bin. Times 8, the same thing happens. I literally dropped the rubbish like nothing happened, had the image of the turtle, kept walking about 10 paces, 10 meters, stopped, and then I looked back and went, oh man, turtle. Went back, picked up the rubbish, right? Started looking for a bin, and then went and put it in a bin. And there's a quote, right? The father of coaching in our generation, Tony Robbins, yeah? He said, change happens when the pain of staying the same is greater than the pain of change. So in that moment, the inconvenience of having to go back to pick up the rubbish hit me like a ton of bricks. And I was like, actually, dude, you're going to walk back and pick up the rubbish because you've got this turtle in your head, right? You might as well just hold on to the rubbish times 9 and go put it straight into the bin. And it was probably time 10 that I was actually walking along, had the rubbish in my hand, and I didn't even think about dropping it. And I was like, you know what? This belongs in a bin. Let me find a bin. Okay, there's a bin 20 meters down the road. Let me go down there, boom, put it in the bin. The question I have for you, at what stage, what step did I change? Was it times 5 when I actually stopped, reflected on it, went back and picked up the rubbish? Or was it times 10 when I'd fully integrated the shift and actually threw my rubbish in the bin and it had become like a new habit? At what point do you think transformation occurred? Go on, take a moment, we'll pause, leave a comment below. I'm really curious to see what you guys had to say because it's always a very divided audience when I share this from stage live. Now, having been coached by Eckhart Tolle for 6 months on presence and purpose to become a coach for others was one of the most profound parts of my coaching journey, even till this day. Eckhart Tolle, for those that don't know, is an incredible sage and teacher. One of the key things that Eckhart says is that the awareness is the shift. What that implies is that the actual point in time where I transformed and changed was actually the minute I saw in that moment the turtle in my brain, which was actually elicited by my wife, creating this awareness shift of the straw coming out of the turtle's nose and me realizing that I was the contributor of that. I had this shift in awareness in that moment that what I was doing was wrong and causing suffering. And I knew in my bones that I didn't want to be a part of suffering. There was a shift of awareness. Now, the rest of the behavioral change, which was yet to come, which you saw, took actually 10 instances for me to get right, even though I had this profound shift in awareness, which again is really somewhat embarrassing. And maybe some of you that have had a shift in awareness can take some heart from this because you feel like the transformation you're trying to be a part of isn't happening fast enough. Just take some heart because really what's happening is that is downwind, that is the tail stream, that is actually the process of integrating the shift. Now, the reason I'm sharing this with you is because you can take a lot of heart in this. Oftentimes in my coaching, I find people have had shifts in awareness and yet their behavior is yet to catch up to the new identity, new behaviors that they're hoping to install and form. The key thing in there is be patient with yourself. Yeah, I know it's hard, especially in a world that's, polluted with social media and distractions and things happen instantaneously online. So why don't our shifts come instantaneously as well? It's a process. Give yourself the space, time, and energy to trust and undergo the integration of the shift in awareness. In the meantime, one of the hardest things I see that people do to themselves, one of the most callous things, is they beat themselves up. Yeah, thinking that, me beating myself up, that I'm not that version of myself that I can see deep down within is actually going to provide some friction that potentially maybe somehow spark a fire that gets them to transform further, faster. In my experience, it doesn't really work. Yeah, as a coach, just take it from me. Holding yourself with some love, care, and genuine compassion for yourself actually gives you the space to get there further, faster. If you find yourself consistently negatively bearing down on yourself as you're trying to transform, it's a great time to actually find yourself a coach if you're really serious about finding transformation within yourself, because they can find more ways to soften the blows, make the environment more rich for you to actually transform with greater ease and fluidity. So one of the questions from this place, now that you know that the awareness is the shift, is how do we actually expand our awareness? I'm glad you asked, and that's a whole nother conversation for a full-on video itself, but just to list them off for you quickly, the key places to start is mindfulness and meditation, definitely increase your self-awareness. Self-reflection, having a practice like journaling or video journaling definitely helps. Taking the time to read and learn through courses, audiobooks, textbooks, engaging in dialogue. You'll notice in my story, it was my wife that was engaging me in dialogue that actually shifted my awareness a significant amount, yeah? Travel and exposure to different countries is probably one of my favorite ways to shift my awareness. Different cultures, different perspectives, different consciousness, different awareness, yeah? Helps you realize what's in your awareness and what you're living as. Seeking feedback can be a really potent tool from others, your friends, your family, your work, your colleagues. And also one of the biggest pieces I would recommend, especially in this noisy world, is having mindful consumption of media. Yeah, making sure that you're consuming positive content, or content at least If it's not positive, I'm obviously biased, but content that's aligned with the kind of frequency you want to carry, right? The kind of awareness shift that you want to have. Another great way to shift your awareness is actually not being afraid of challenges. Yeah, some of the biggest lessons I've learned on the Inspired Evolution, having interviewed all these remarkable people, is that they actually turn their biggest challenges into their biggest gifts. Another video will be coming out on that shortly, but embracing your challenges to form your biggest gifts is an incredible place to start your awareness. Finding gratitude in the pain, finding that grit. What is the silver lining? Practicing empathy is also a really great way to shake up your awareness, because you're actually putting yourself in the shoes of another person. As you do more and more of that, you actually take on a whole nother perspective, and your awareness once again will shift. I've also found personally that yoga and body awareness is a really cool space to start to play with, hey, like what's actually going on in my body, and that can expand awareness in different ways as well. Oftentimes I've found how to mitigate injury just because of the way that yoga has encouraged me to move through asana, despite one of my biggest passions being going to the gym and just throwing a heavy weight around. Yoga has been super inspiring for me to learn how to actually move in my body with awareness. Another place where you can find some really incredible inspiration to shift your awareness is spending time in nature. Yeah, going for walks, looking at trees, looking at birds, just spending time near a river. You know, it's when I walk out there, touch wood, sometimes with a guitar, it's when the greatest inspiration can hit me, right? So spending time in nature can be really incredible for shifting your awareness. And I've also got some really beautiful friends. Yes, I'm looking at you, Yanni. Yes, I gave you a shout out, Yanni, in this video. And for those that know Yanni will know that he probably won't be appreciating the shout out. He is way too modest. But one of the things I find him doing as a brother really well is volunteering and giving back in his local community, and the awareness and the shift that that creates. Again, it's employing empathy, but also service. Incredible shifts of awareness come from that space. So, you know, there's at least 13 different ways just there that you can expand your awareness and architect a shift for yourself. And just remember, guys, the awareness is the shift. Yeah, just cultivate more awareness and the shifts will continue to come. If you're inspired to evolve, work with your awareness, expand your awareness, the shifts will come. Second to that, just a little second, is don't beat yourself up for not having integrated the shift. The shift is coming. It's a process of integration. Now, one of the places that I left out is that actually the most profound shifts in awareness are also available through getting hyper clear on your values. If you're around the Inspired Evolution ecosystem and you haven't taken a moment to figure out your values yet, what are you even doing? Here is a video that I created on how you can discover your values. Find your top 3 values. When you know what your values are, your whole life, your relationships, your work, your partnerships, your business, everything that you're invested in, your relationship with yourself improves significantly. Having clarity on these things is super powerful, and having that in my awareness pretty much at all times is super, super helpful when it comes to making decisions, navigating arguments, making time for what's important, spending time with the right people. So transform yourself right now and change your awareness of yourself by finding out what your values are. I've architected a moment of awareness shift for you in this video. Find out your top values now.